بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have managed to come to the end of the book Falsafiyya Muqaddamati, or Basic Philosophy, which is based on Ayatollah Mutahhari's philosophical ideas compiled by one of the very knowledgeable brothers in Qom, Mr. Ubudiyat. And so, inshallah, this will be our last session. There are, yes, so in the original Farsi version, there are 50 lessons. This lesson, inshallah, this lecture, we will be talking about 49, which is Qada and Qadar, and 50, which is Shurur. So, Qada and Qadar means divine decree and measure, and Shurur is about the problem of evil. And we have studied more than 90% of the book. Just maybe 2-3 lessons we, didn't study because they were too technical and not needed. So, as you remember, the last section of the book was about divine actions. After talking about divine essence and divine attributes, then we started studying divine actions. We talked about whether this universe is created or it's eternal. We talked about different universes, Alam al-Lahut, Alam al-Nasut, Alam al-Jabarut, Alam al-Malakut, Alam al-Mithal. All these things we discussed, alhamdulillah. And now we are going to discuss the last 2 lessons. So, first, Qada and Qadar. We had very good discussion about this when we studied theological instructions. And also, some of you had Islamic belief system also with me, we discussed it. So this is very easy for you. Also about Shurur, mashallah, we had detailed discussion based on divine justice. Yeah? So you will be reminded of those discussions. This is one of the beauties of studying different books, because then they help each other and strengthen each other. So let's start with Qada and Qadar. Qada in Arabic literally means to finish, to terminate, to settle. So it always has an element of finalizing something. Okay? It can be used for a judgment in the court. When 2 people have debate or dispute, the judge is called Qazi, and his job is Qada, because he finishes the dispute. Yeah? Or sometimes we have, for example, in the case of people who are in, for example, hell, they say to the angel who's responsible for hell, نَادَوْ يَا مَالِكْ لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ. O Malik, your Lord should finish us, terminate us, لِيَقْضِ. Because when you are finished, means it's finalized. Yeah? So, always, whenever you find an occurrence of Qada or its derivatives, there is a matter of finalizing and decisiveness. Qadar also literally has meanings. It's normally used in the sense of measure, size, limit. Yeah, this is qadar. But what do we mean by them in theology? What does qada and what does qadar mean in theology? For philosophers, when they talk about qada and qadar, they sometimes use it in the sense of scientific qada and qadar. They call it al-qada wal-qadar al-ayniyan. Al-qada al-ayni, ilmi, wal-qadar al-ilmi. Ilmi means scientific, means something which is a matter of knowledge. Inshallah, I will explain it in details. So philosophers, sometimes they talk about qada and qadar ilmi, scientific qada and qadar. Sometimes they talk about qada wal qadar al ayni. Ayn means objective world. So al qada wal qadar not in knowledge, al qada wal qadar in the real world, in the external objective world. So Muslim philosophers, when they talk about qada and qadar, sometimes they refer to some level of the knowledge of God. Sometimes they refer to what is in the world of creation, in the external world. Then, inshallah, after we talk about this, we talk about ideas of the mutakallimin. So, Ayatollah Mutahhari says, Muslim philosophers believe that qada is an action of God. It's an action or act of God which is inclusive. And they mean by that anything which comes to existence unless in the knowledge of God it is decisive, it's finalized. Either they mean knowledge of God in his essence, or some philosophers mean knowledge of God in alam uqul. Okay? You remember alam uqul? Purely, completely abstract, immaterial realities which are above the physical world. Under lahut, but above nasut. Yeah? And we said those intellects, according to Masha'un, are hierarchical and they are 10. According to Ishraqiyun, there are many and they are horizontal. They are arzi. You remember we discussed this. So, either in those intellects there is knowledge of what is going to happen, image of what is going to happen, or in Allah's essence, because Allah knows us in different ways. He knows us in His essence, He knows us through intellects, He knows us also through knowledge by presence, because we are present to Him. Okay? So, nothing happens unless there is a scientific existence for it in alam uqul or in the divine knowledge in his essence. This is qadaya ilmi. There is also qadar al-ilmi, and that is nothing happens unless its measures and limits are in the knowledge of God in his essence or knowledge of God in his creatures as uqul. So everything goes back to knowledge. God knows what's going to happen certainly, and God knows what measure they are going to have. So it's a matter of knowledge. But they have another usage, and that is about alam al-ain, about the world of realities, the world of things in their objectivity. And they mean by qada, in this sense, qada aini, they mean the necessity that beings have. Inshallah, we'll talk about it more, but if you remember in philosophy earlier, we had this idea. الشيء ما لم يجب لم يوجد. Nothing would become existent unless it has become necessary. Yeah? الشيء ما لم يجب لم يوجد. الماهية, you remember that formula? الماهية تقررت فأمكنت فاحتاجت فأوجبت فوجبت فأوجدت فوجدت. MashaAllah, very good. Say salawat for her. اللهم صل على محمد.
But wasn't it go against societal wujud or Buddha Sadr?
No, this is what everyone accepts.
Everybody accepts.
Everyone accepts this. Yes. This doesn't need to be a salat al-wujud. الماهية تقررت فأمكنت فاحتاجت فأوجبت فوجبت فأوجدت فوجدت. Okay? As we said, this is very good for the first night in the grave, and you can have nice conversation with the angels, and by this you can take some time. Okay, so everything in order to become a reality must become necessary. Yeah, there must be wujub. But what type of wujub is this? Is it بالغير or بالذات or بالقياس إلى الغير? It's بالغير. So it's necessary, but not by itself. It doesn't become واجب الوجود بالذات. It becomes واجب الوجود بالغير. So everything that becomes a reality has to be necessary. Yes? This is al-qada'ul aini. And also, everything which becomes a reality has to have some measure, has to be defined. You cannot have something outside vague or ambiguous. Anything which exists has ta'ayyun and tashakhus. Yeah, it's one individual which is very clearly separated from other things. So this is called al-qadarul aini. So philosophers mean by qada wal qadar either something which relates to Allah's knowledge or something which is about the real world, the objective world, and everything is decisive, necessary, and clearly defined, clearly measured. If you remember in Aqaid, we mentioned about إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Everything we created in measure. Yeah? Or we said, إِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِنْدَنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدَرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. The treasures of everything are with Allah, and He sends down in measures which are fixed. Okay? You have some knowledge. That's fixed in the sense that it's measured. You can try to increase it, but even the increase will be in a measure. Everything has a measure. Then we have متكلمون. Asha'ira and Mu'tazila, Ash'arites and Mu'tazilites, as they call in English, Asha'ira and Mu'tazila, they had lots of disputes about this issue. For Asha'ira, the most important thing was to emphasize on unity of God, especially in this debate, unity of God with respect to his actions. They wanted to make sure that everything is considered as an act of God. Yeah? Even our sins are acts of God. Everything, our voluntary actions are acts of God. And remember in Baba Hadi Ash we talked about Nadariyatul Kasb. Our role is only that those actions are created in us, by God in us. We are only subject. This is Nadariyatul Kasb. Remember, according to Ash'arites, we have no role, except those actions happen in us. God creates them in us. For Mu'tazilites, this was problematic, because they said in this way, God, na'udhu billah, becomes unjust, because he creates bad things in us and then he punishes us or blames us. If he is the creator and we are just a place, so why he should, blame or punish us? Or why he should praise us and reward us? So Mu'tazilites had the idea that when it comes to our voluntary actions, for which we have moral responsibility, God has delegated everything to us. Tafwid. So Mu'tazilites went to the other extreme. Ash'arites emphasized on Tawheed, and that God is the sole agent. But the cost was to question justice of God. Mu'tazilites emphasized on justice of God, but the price was to question unity of God in actions. So, in other words, for Mu'tazilites, God is responsible for certain things, and for certain things we are responsible. He is not responsible. He is not agent. He has left it to us. But the Shiite theologians, mutakallimin, they were taught by Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam to find a middle position, something in between. La jabra wa la tafwid, bal amrun bayna amrayn. A status between the two. And that is by saying that although Allah is the creator of all beings, including all our actions, but He has also given us freedom. And in our free actions, we occur in the hierarchy of the agents. He is agent, we are also under him agent. So there is no delegation like tafwid, but at the same time we have also some role. We are free. We can do this or we can do the opposite. Inna hadaynahu sabil, imma shakiran wa imma kafura. So something in between.
So the Ash'arites don't believe in free will at all.
Pardon?
Ash'arites don't believe in free will at all.
They don't believe. They believe only in kasb. There is a story that Qadi Abdul Jabbar al-Mu'tazili, he's very famous Mu'tazili. So he went to Prime Minister, Abbasid Prime Minister, Sahib ibn Abbad, and then an Ash'ari scholar also was there, Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayani. So there was Qadi Abdul Jabbar al-Mu'tazili, and there was Abu Ishaq al-Isfarayani. Isfarayan is a place near Isfahan. Okay? So these two mutakallim, one Ash'ari, one Mu'tazilite, were next to the minister, prime minister, or you can say minister. At that time, minister means Wazir means like second to the king. So it's like prime minister. So when Qazi Abdul Jabbar saw Abu Ishaq there, said, Subhana man tanazzaha anil fahsha. So he teased him. He said, God is to be glorified with respect to doing bad things. God would not do bad things. Meaning that the idea of the Ash'arites was wrong because it makes God responsible for our bad things and for sins. Okay? Then Abu Ishaq al-Isfara'ini said, Subhana man la yajri fi mulkihi illa ma yasha. May God be glorified, who is the one that nothing happens in his kingdom unless he wills. So each of them was stressing on something which was good, but they didn't find the balance. One was saying everything has to be act of God, will of God. Another one was saying God cannot be responsible for bad things. And justice of God. But as I said, the balanced position was Amrun bayna amrayn. The next issue is Qadha is decided, is definite, is decisive. But Qadar is changeable. I don't know, you remember we talked about this in details. We said it is like you having different routes. If you take this route, it takes you to that destination. If you take the second route, takes you to another. For example, you go toward north, then you go to one of the cities in the north. If you go to the south, you go to one of the cities in the south. You have the choice to choose between going to the north or going to the south. But when you take going to the north, then you must go to the north. Yeah? So, going to the north as such is not fixed, but after taking that route or path, it becomes necessary. He mentions that a story that you are familiar, someone saw Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam sitting under a wall, and this wall was leaning. Yes. Amirul Mu'minin, when looked at the wall is not stable, went away. Someone said, Atafirru min qadha illah. Oh Ali, are you running away from qadha of Allah? If Allah has made this qadha that this collapses, so it's going to collapse. If Allah has made qadha that it doesn't collapse, it doesn't collapse. Also, if He has made qadha that you should be killed by this, you will be killed. Otherwise, you will not. Then Amirul Mu'minin said, Afirru min qada'illah ila qadarillah. I run away from His qadha to His qadar. What does it mean? It means that if I remain here and it collapses, it will collapse on me. But if I go somewhere else and it collapses, it would not collapse on me. Based on my decision, I would face different outcomes. It's wrong to think that everything is predestined. Everything is decided in eternity. Sometimes people about marriage, they say, whatever is decided for you is going to happen. And if they have not good marriage, they say, this was decided for me. But if it was decided, why we have so many hadiths about recommendations? You should marry this type of person. You should not marry that type of person. Why? It shows that it's left for you. And and the other party to decide. Of course, Allah knows what you are going to decide, but as we said before, His knowledge would not force you. He knows what you decide, not that because He knows you decide. You remember? We said knowledge always comes in order after what is known. If He knows that you are going to make this decision, His knowledge is not going to force you. Actually, it's because of you doing that He knows. And if you would do something else, He knows the other thing. So, you must be very careful in using and exercising your freedom of will properly. Yes, we said there are issues that maybe Allah has already fixed. But even those things He has fixed, like for example, He has decided that Imam Mahdi should come. But even those things, if you remember, we said still He's not going to force. He has the plan, but He will wait till a generation would decide to prepare for that. He would not force His plan. Or even, for example, if for Pharaoh, he finally had the plan that Pharaoh has gone, beyond all the limits and has to be stopped, still He didn't force His plan. Still, Pharaoh remained free, Bani Israel remained free, but He just prepared everything in the way that they freely did what was His plan. You remember we had this discussion about makaru wa makar Allah, wallahu khayrun makirin. So, qadha is decisive, but not predestined, because you have different routes, and depending on which one you choose, there would be a decisive result. Okay? Yes.
What example can be given to those people? They said that because Allah knows that this person is going to do this, that's why the person is doing it.
No.
Is there any example we can give?
Yes.
A general example.
For example, I know that now in, for example, another part of the world, for example, I know that now in Australia, people are waking up and going to work. I know that. So is it because I know they are going to do this? I know tomorrow sun is rising from the east. Is it because I know? A teacher who is experienced and knows his students knows which student is going to pass the exam, which one is going to fail. Is it because the teacher knows they are going to pass, or because they are going to pass, he knows? So when you have prediction or decisive knowledge, it's not forcing what is known. A prediction doesn't force what is known. Advanced knowledge doesn't force what is known. Okay?
For example, can we give this example? If a person goes into no entry,
Into
a no entry, the traffic is coming from the other side, goes to no entry, so we can predict it's going to be an accident.
yes. Yeah, but we are not forcing him. So because God knows past, present, future, He knows our actions in advance. But that's not forcing us. Yeah? There is a beautiful point also towards the end of this discussion. And he says, everything with respect to its complete cause, al-illatu tamma, is dharuri. This is actually what Allama Tabatabai also mentions in some of his books about qada and qadar. For example, in Shia Islam, he says, the necessity that we have in qada is the necessity which comes from al-illatu tamma. Because you know, لا يجوز تخلف المعلول عن علته التامة. You remember this? لا يجوز المعلول تخلف المعلول عن علته التامة. When the complete cause is there, then معلول must be there. It's واجب بالغير. So this is qada. It's decisive. But if there is incomplete cause, for example, some conditions are not yet fulfilled, then it's not necessary to be there. For example, we have father but not mother, or we have mother but not father, because father and mother are part of the complete cause. God is the giver of existence, but in physical world, God is not the complete cause. Certain conditions also have to be fulfilled. Don't get me wrong, don't say, why you say God is not the complete cause. Because if God was the complete cause in the physical world, so everything must be there from eternity. In alam mujarradat, God just says be, and there they are. But in this world, God creates when conditions are fulfilled and are prepared. Okay? So you have to have certain time. For example, when God gives you flower, when certain conditions are met. Okay? So, if some of those things that we need in the complete cause are missing, then there is no necessity. Yes.
In the case of Isa,
yes.
How can we explain that? Because obviously there's malul there, but there's no illah. For example,
Allah is God. Allah is God, and mother and father are illat mu'addeh. They are preparatory, not originating. The mother and father don't give existence, and therefore someone may remain after the death of mother and father. Yeah? But the illah which gives existence has to always be with ma'lul. If that illah goes away, ma'lul goes away. Al-illatul mufida, the one that gives existence. But parents, or for example, a builder for construction, these are illat mu'addeh, illat i'dadi, means they prepare the ground for existence to come from God. Okay? Like for example, you take your container under a waterfall. Waterfall is giving existence, but you have to take your container there to get this shape of water. So, anything that beings have in this world is from God. But what determines the size, the limits, is from this world. Because God is absolute and infinite. These are the conditions of this world, that when, where, how you should be here is decided by these conditions. Yes.
Sheikh, can you give this example? If, say Allah says a person would live between the age of 65 and 85, we decide with our own actions how long we live.
Okay.
If we live a healthy life and if we keep away from danger, we live to the maximum. If not, then we leave.
So you are part of the cause. But, of course, Allah can always intervene and override.
like du'as.
Like du'as, like Salih Rahim, like Sadaqah. But we have also a role. So your diet, your exercise, they are important. But there are also other things which are important. But you cannot say no matter what I eat and no matter what I do, everything is in advance, decided by God. No, this is not like this. Okay? So, Alhamdulillah, we finished this lesson. The last and final lesson is about shurur, about bad things that we have. Normally, they say in books on philosophy of religion, we have two types of evil. They say tabi'i and akhlaqi, natural and moral catastrophes and problems. Sometimes problems are natural, like earthquakes, flood, storms, drought, there is no water. Sometimes it's moral, means we have a role, like war, injustice, yeah, this type of things, and we have role. So the question is, if God is the creator of the world and everything in this world, why we have some problems in the world? Why the world is not perfect? Why we have some people who are poor, who are ill, who are oppressed, people who become orphans, people who become alone, people who are not appreciated and understood? Yes? Why there are so many problems in the world? So, this is the question. Muslim philosophers, although this is discussed in Kalam, but Muslim philosophers also in Ilahiyat bil Ma'na al-Akhas, they have addressed this issue because it's a philosophical question. Remember in the book Divine Justice also we had response of Muslim philosophers. If you want to understand the response of Muslim philosophers, we can classify it in 3 points. First, let's see how these bad things happen. What is their origin? Where do these bad things come from? Secondly, let's see whether we can separate good things from bad things so that we can only have good things. And third, what are the good outcomes of these bad things? So first see what's the reality of the bad things and what is their origin. If you reflect on the problems, on the evil in the world, you realize that they are not as such bad. They are bad for us or bad for something else. For example, when we can be able to see, then blindness is considered to be bad. But blindness is not something which is created. It's just lack of sight. Or for example, illness is lack of health. Even if it is something existential, for example, like poison of a snake. Again, the poison is not bad by itself. Poison is bad maybe for us. Actually, even it's not always bad for us, because from the same poison, maybe we can make some medicines. Yeah? So, shurur are either adami, means they are not really beings. They are lack of a being. Or even if they are some kind of being, like, for example, illness or like poison, they are not bad as such. It's not that their very existence is bad. They are bad for us or for an animal, for example. Yeah? For example, a wolf is bad for the sheep, but it's not bad as such. We are also bad for the sheep. Yeah? So if we take human beings as the measure, yes, certain things are bad for us, certain things are good for us, but they are not bad in themselves. Okay? So, the idea that some people have had, remember in Adlilai we said there are people who think that God has created good things and Satan has created bad things. In some form of Zoroastrianism, there is this idea. Of course, some Zoroastrians deny that. They say we believe in unity of God, but some had this idea that God is responsible for good things. Ahriman is responsible for the bad things. But we say bad things don't exist. Yeah, everything is created by God. The thing is, some of the things are bad in relation to us. Okay? But in themselves, they are not bad. Yes, you can ask a very good question. You can say, why God created things that can be bad for us? Why He didn't only create things that are good for us? This is a good question. So you cannot say why God created bad things. There is nothing as bad as such. You can say, so for example, why we become ill? Why there is flood? Why there is poison in a snake? Why there is earthquake? Why everything is not just perfect? This is a very good question. So, the question of dualism is very obvious that it's wrong. But the better question is, what is the wisdom behind having things that for us can be problem? Why God didn't make everything for us pleasant and suitable? To answer this question, we have another discussion, and that is about the nature of this world. In the physical world, you cannot separate these things from each other. You cannot have fire and use fire for making your home warm, for cooking, for technology. As soon as fire wants to burn you, you say, no, I don't like this. Okay, we ask you, we give you choice. Either no fire at all, or fire, but sometimes it can cause problem if you are not careful. Which one you choose? You choose to have fire, but be careful. Electricity, we give you choice. Actually, now every person has choice. You can subscribe to electricity at home. You can say, I don't want electricity. No one is going to force you. Okay? But do you prefer not to have electricity at all? Because there is a chance that maybe there would be fire, or you may be killed by electricity? No. You say, I want to have electricity. I try to be careful. Driving. Many people are killed in accidents, but still they say we prefer to use cars. Yes, because overall is in our favor. So philosophers say there are 5 possibilities. about everything created. To have something which is always bad, this is not created by God. Something which has to be bad. Something which is most of the time bad. Something which is 50% good, 50% bad, this is also not created by God. Everything is either always good or good prevails. Okay? So, you cannot have the physical world and separate good use from bad outcomes. They come together. You want sharp knife. Yes? But sharp knife can also sometimes cause injury. Still people go and say we want sharp knife. They don't say, we want something which is dull or something which is not sharp. So, this is one point. Another point is, in addition to the fact we said so far that, there is only one creator and God has created everything, and everything which has been created is not bad as such, it's relational, and then we said that the good outweighs the bad. In addition to all these, we say even these bad things have good outcomes. Fire sometimes burns. Okay. But first of all, this is rare. And you can learn to control and manage it. But even this is not empty from some benefits. Because from this we can learn many things. Yeah? Actually, many people nowadays make their earning to fight fire. Yeah? Many factories produce fire extinguisher. Many discussions, in universities about this issue. They make dress which is fireproof. Yeah, we can learn many things. Illnesses. We have so many, medical universities. Millions of people in the world are doctors and nurses and produce medicines and they sell medicine. Yeah? So it's all to fight medicine. If we were all healthy, these people also would lose their job. Yeah? And even in combating illness, we have learned many things about how to improve our health. So, these difficulties can lead to good consequences. For example, sometimes there is a dictator, doesn't give people freedom. But then from this we can learn how to help each other, how to unite, how to struggle for reaching freedom. We understand better the value of freedom. If you have been always benefiting from freedom, you don't know the value of freedom. If all people always had freedom, it becomes boring, or people take it for granted. Yeah? If you had no death, first of all, there would be no space for us. There would be no job for us. There would be no way to learn how to stand on your feet. Because then we would always rely on our elders and we would not be taking any responsibility. So, not only good and bad cannot be totally separated from each other, but also there are lots of good coming from these things that are not pleasant. We don't like them, but many, many good things come. And also, there are lots of changes in the world, in the physical world. These changes are very important. If the physical world is fixed, then it finishes. It's like a movie on TV. or cinema, you go to watch a movie. If it is fixed, then you cannot watch anything. It has to change. Yeah? It has to change. So this is why philosophers say, لولا التضاد لما صح دوام الفيض عن المبدأ الباري. It's a very important philosophical rule. Had it not been that there are oppositions, there are differences, there is diversity, divine grace would not have come down. It's very interesting. The nature of this world is change, and it's the change that brings down the grace of God. If this world is frozen, then no more grace would come. Okay? So we have to move. And when we are moving, okay, then we may hit each other, we may cause problem for each other, or we may help each other, but we have to move. We may lose some people, but we'll have also some birth. Yeah? So, this is another point that we have to remember. Philosophers also say natural motions are normally caused by unnatural motions. I think in discussion about haraka we mentioned, they say haraka is sometimes qasri with sin, not qasr with sin, means by force, and sometimes it's tab'i, means by nature. For example, if you throw an apple to a sky, apple going high is qasri, means it's by force. Coming down is by nature. Al-harakatul qasriya la tadum. Something which is by force can never be remaining forever. Okay? But if you don't throw this apple to a sky, the apple doesn't come down. You understand? We need to sometimes push so that then they start moving. Yeah? If I don't tell you all the time to do mubahasa, it doesn't become your natural habit. Yeah? So I have to push you. Everything in the world is like this. There must be some push, some force, so that then you start moving and functioning. For some people, the push can be to just tell them. You give them one advice, they start moving. Sometimes, you hear one sentence from a scholar, from a man of God, and that changes your life. That's a push. For some people, you have to hear it 10 times. Sometimes you need physical push. Maybe sometimes your parents had to physically give you advice. Sometimes you are defeated in the life, and that's the push for success. Yeah? For example, you failed in your exam, you failed in your business, you were beaten up by, people and gangs on the street. So that gives you lesson that you have to be strong. Sometimes we don't get, unfortunately, this lesson in dunya, then in barzakh, they give you a push. So, anyway, Allah gives you so much of opportunities, but finally you have to move. Finally you have to move. So, philosophers say natural motion is normally coming after motion by force. If there were no catastrophes, no calamities, no problems, no pains, our civilization was not formed. Sciences, technologies, all are because of us facing problems. In Arabic, they say, Al-hajatu ummul ikhtira. Needs are mother of inventions. Yeah, means if there was no need, you would not. This is actually very much in line with what we discuss in akhlaq. That if everything is pleasant and you are comfortable and relaxed, then you will not be able to grow. You will not be able to become strong. So, at the end, there are 3 points as summary that the author mentions. First, the problems in the world are not non-existence. They are beings which cause sometimes non-existence. Okay? Like poison. Second, these problems, these unpleasant things cannot be separated from good things. If you want good things, these also come with it. And the third is that these problems in the big system of the world have great role. Without them, this world would not be serving the purpose. You remember in Aqaid I told you, we want a place for trial, for test. We have to have difficulties. If you want to train commandos, where should you send them? You should send them to difficult conditions. You cannot send them to 5-star hotels and say, we wanted to become good commandos. You have to send them to jungles and forests and deserts and caves and give them no food, no communication. Yeah, if you give them, food and dress and comfortable bed and TV and a swimming pool, they never become commandos. So, for the purpose that we have to become complete human beings, to develop our potentialities in every aspect, to develop our intellectual capacity, our emotional capacity, our spiritual capacity, we need actually something like this world. Heaven is very good, but heaven would not have the same function that dunya has. In heaven, you cannot become patient. Yes, in heaven you cannot become patient. In dunya you can become patient and then you go to heaven. But in heaven you cannot become patient. Because how you are going to be patient where everything is perfect? You have to learn how to be patient in a world like dunya. If you want to be charitable, you have to become charitable in dunya. When shaitan says you become poor, when shaitan says, you must save money, save, time for yourself, your family, then you don't listen. But in heaven, there is no worry. So it's not a great thing if in heaven you do charity things, because you have guarantee that you would have everything you want to eat, everything you want to, use. So, for the purpose that Allah has for us, this world is the best world. For that purpose. Even heaven is not adequate for this world. The purpose. Do you understand? Because this is a training, this is a test place where people can be tested. In a world like dunya, when there are good people, bad people, when there are ease and difficulties, health and illness, rich and poverty, war and peace, this is the best scenario for growing and becoming a moral person, a strong and patient person. You have a question?
Yeah, Sheikh. What is the reason for patience in heaven? Because we don't need patience in heaven.
This is what I'm saying.
But why do we have to practice it here?
So, because patience is a virtue. In heaven, you will enjoy your virtues, but in dunya, you acquire the virtues.
But we've acquired patience in dunya.
Yes.
What do we don't need it in heaven? That patience that we've acquired.
No. By having patience, you become a full human being.
It's like a tool to go.
Yes. By being generous, by being kind, by being, brave, you become a full human being.
So for qualification, we are qualified.
Yes. You resemble God more. You become closer to God. You become more perfect. But you cannot achieve these things in heaven. In dunya, you have to achieve them. So, inshallah, I hope we can benefit from this limited time that we have in dunya to achieve whatever we have to achieve, because that's the only opportunity that we have. We don't have any other opportunity. That's the limited opportunity. And as Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam said, Ad-dunya matjaru awliya Allah. Dunya is the place that friends of God do their business. We don't have any other place for business. Whatever profit you make, whatever you save for akhirah, it's only now. Okay, alhamdulillah, the book is finished. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all his blessings, especially the blessings that we received through knowledge and understanding. And inshallah, after this we start Bidayatul Hikmah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.